everyone. Welcome to episode 86 of Powerbombshells. I am Sam. That is Mel. And we have a special guest with us today. We have Lyric, who is joining us finally. She's everywhere and a busy lady. And we are very glad that we were able to have her pencil us in her schedule. Welcome to the show, Lyric.
You make me sound so much cooler than I am. I am very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Because you were introduced to us by a fellow Fight Game Media person, and they were like, "We want to." They're like, "We want to introduce you to my friend Lyric," and then we started following Lyric, and we were trying to figure out when. And then, as things go, we were kind of all busy doing things, and then I found out that Lyric is actually not that far from me. She's in South Carolina, and I'm in Charlotte, so that's always nice to have people close by in a sense. And then of course Lyric is jet setting all the time.
You've gotten everywhere this year. It's awesome.
Listen, my bank account hates me.
I hear you.
I can't even put it into words, but it has been a lot of fun. It's my first time ever doing this. I turned 25 this year, and so I was, how do I say, before this, I was more so of a very do what's expected of me type of person. So I said for 1 year, just for 1 year, I'm going to tell myself yes and just do all the things that I've ever wanted to do.
And how has that worked out? It seems like it's pretty good.
I'm a lot broker, but I am a lot happier.
Yeah, you're wealthier in experience and knowledge.
Yeah.
So do you think, like, once you're 1 year, that 1 year period you gave yourself, do you think you'll dial it back a little bit, or do you think you'll just keep saying yes? Or
it depends. So I told myself, like, by my birthday is February 21st, 2024. If like nothing substantial comes from this, like I'll go back to like find a regular job and just be normal. And so I don't know, I still have time. I will say I've really exceeded all of my original expectations. So I don't even think I expected like to get here. Like, cause like when I first did it, I just really did it as a fan. So like I hadn't even started content creating yet or anything. Like I said, I just want to start going to shows. Like I never really went to shows obviously down here, we don't get a lot of shows.
Right.
And like I used to always be like super hyper work oriented. So I'm always busy, always never really make time to do this. And so I only went to my first pay-per-view in November last year.
Wow, really?
Nice.
Tomorrow is my 17th year of being a wrestling fan. That's my 17th anniversary. And I went to my first pay-per-view in November last year, Full Gear. And so like I've only just started traveling.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So it's always
go ahead.
I was just saying it's always been a huge part of my life, but I'm only just now pulling the trigger on it.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna ask. So you have the date, because I have no idea like the actual date I started wrestling instead of watching wrestling, and some people do. And so what made you start watching wrestling 17 years ago?
It was the Raw family reunion, October 9th, 2006 in Columbia, South Carolina. I actually did not go. Some family members had went, and I only turned on the TV to see if I could see them in the crowd. That is the only reason why I never really watched wrestling. If anybody ever asked me about, because I was offered a ticket, I said, well, I don't like wrestling. So I never watched it.
Yeah.
And I just remember like I turned on the TV looking for them in the crowd, and then like by the 30th minute, like I had forgotten all about them. Like I had forgotten all about them, and like I was just hooked. And it was also a really big episode of Raw. So that was back when, obviously, when Raw was 2 hours. It used to be 2 hours, but it was only 3 hours on special occasions.
Right.
So it was a Raw family reunion. Like we had like a whole bunch of legends coming back, and it was just awesome. And I just remember like I was just obsessed. And after that, like I just started begging, like I need. Please buy me a pay-per-view. Please buy me a pay-per-view. What was after that? Cyber Sunday 2006. My brother was born the very next week, 7 days later. And so I was just like, I've always wanted a brother. I wanted to force him to watch wrestling. He never really got into it. and so yeah, they like the rest is literally history. And then I remember I would only get like one pay-per-view a year purchased for me, so I would always choose WrestleMania.
Of course.
And so my first WrestleMania was WrestleMania 23. That was really cool. What was that? That was the hair versus hair match. And after that, I'm really into it. And I think I kind of fell out of it a little bit in high school, not because I didn't love it, but it was more so one because, like I said, I was an overachiever. So I was like student council, National Honor Society. Like I was always after stuff, marching band, like literally. And also, like, wrestling just stopped being cool. I was the only person around who was still into it. But then, like Black and Gold, he happened. Like I see Sasha Banks for the first time, and like I became obsessed with her and like the first women, and I just loved Black and Gold NXT for that time period. And I just remember like I used to have this job my first job at a grocery store my senior year of high school, and I didn't even have a bank account yet. So I used to go cash the checks in cash, and I would go to Walmart and I would buy the 3-month gift cards, the WWE Network subscription.
Right.
So I would keep buying them because NXT was on, obviously, the network back then.
Yeah.
That was all I was watching. I don't even think I was watching main roster. I only started watching main roster again when Sasha, Becky, and Charlotte got called up. And then I went to college, and I'm gonna be honest, like main roster for a while it was cool. Like I did like the like the what was it, the SmackDown 6 stuff, like where like SmackDown was really good around then. Like
it was
when Becky, Naomi, and like that, it was really good. But then like I obviously go to college, overachiever, and also Friday nights, you're going out and stuff like that.
Right.
So I got out of it. But like that's actually what I went to school for. So I was a sport entertainment management major. So that's what my degree is in. So I always wanted to work in wrestling. Like that was the goal. That's why I went to college. Like
sure.
But then I get like I said, overachiever. So I become like the student activist on campus, and like I just start like student government, TEDx, Forbes, like all these different things. And like so I just literally have no time. And so I had already given up on wrestling, honestly, because like I wasn't really into WWE anymore, and I didn't feel like it was just inclusive for me for what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And so I kind of like just like, I'm gonna finish this degree and like just, and just figure something out. I'd already decided, I think I'm gonna go into politics or something. And then AEW comes around in 2019, and like obviously like they've been on my radar since they were created. But like I was still busy. Like I was still, like I said, overachiever. And that didn't really stop until last year. I kind of had like a mental breakdown.
Oh, goodness.
And I just really kind of crashed. Like, I'd been going full speed my entire life, always overachieving. And like in that dark place, the only thing I really could reconnect it with wrestling. And I just remember like Forbidden Door last year. That was why I got like a New Japan World account. And so literally, like it's funny now, but it wasn't funny back then. But like I would I was just so depressed I couldn't do anything. So like I would just sit in like a dark room and just watch Japanese wrestling over and over again, like just matches and matches and matches and matches and matches. Like I just fell in love with it, and like especially that strong style, like Shibata and stuff.
Yeah.
So of course, ever since I've been going full speed. I don't even know why. Like I don't even know why I started podcasting. And writing, like I think it was just, like, I just have so many thoughts in my head. Like I just want to get them out.
Yeah.
And I don't think I ever really expected anybody like read them.
Right.
It's just like sometimes like it's just like, oh, I gotta get this off. And
right.
Like, that's why I'm more so shocked than anything like that people actually listen, because I just be talking. So as you see right now, I just went on a rant about my
life. That's fine. That's great.
I love it. Oh my God.
The things I was going to ask, and I guess you sort of answered it by saying that you're an overachiever. I was going to ask you, how do you balance, because I know that you're still in college, or you're in grad school, right?
I'm a PhD student. Yeah.
That's what I thought. And so I was like, how do you balance the being a student and then, your wrestling content and watching wrestling? Because I know that you watch like a ton of wrestling. So how do you balance all of that?
It's been hard. And I will say, like, I've been had to make some very unfun decisions, I
Yeah.
would say, like about school and just like life.
Sure.
Like just because like currently, like I will say like I'm doing a lot while trying to like be on the hunt for like work and just
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm gonna be honest, I really don't know. It just kind of happens.
Right.
Like I'm really passionate about what I do at school. Education. So my degree, well, my potential degree is in educational foundations, a lot of policy advocacy. So I was a first generation college student, and so that's something I've always been passionate about. Like always been
Sure.
passionate about. Like my
Yeah.
senior year of high school, I actually went on Capitol Hill and like advocated for first generation college students.
Well,
Not
that's
high school,
amazing.
sorry,
Good.
senior year of college. Um, and so that's always been something important to me. I was a part of like trio first generation programs in college, like, and so that's something that's I'm really passionate about. And so the work that I do in school is really important to me, but also wrestling is really important to me, and it takes up a lot of time. And I will say this is my first semester actually balancing, so
Okay.
I really don't know. Because like when I started podcasting and everything, it actually happened at the end of the spring semester. So I was already in finals,
Sure.
really, and so I just kind of like went straight to summer and like have really like had time. So this is really my first time trying to
Gotcha.
balance, and so we'll see. I think I really have reached a point in my life where I've realized, okay, the wrestling thing is not going away. I thought it was just a hobby.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
I thought it was just a hobby, and like it's become such just a large part of my life. So it's a non-negotiable. And so we'll see. Wins. Hopefully I can have both, but we'll see.
Listen, you can just look at people like I was just gonna say like Deanna Parazzo, who wrestled and went to school and got her degree, and we've seen we've seen Nikki, who graduated with her PhD and she is wrestling full time. So just maybe you just keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out how you're gonna do this and be like, well, they did it, maybe that'll help me through.
Definitely.
Yeah, but I can imagine how tough it is because it's hard just balancing with like because having a full-time job and then doing like wrestling content on the side. So I can only imagine with school because you've got papers and exams and all
Yes.
kinds of things. And that's going to school, especially in grad school and getting a PhD. That's a full-time job in itself.
Yeah.
Actually, I gotta say this is I am very proud and very like excited that you are doing what you're doing. I mean, I'm also I worked in education. I worked in supplemental education and youth sports, the whole thing. I mean, everyone that watches our show knows where I stand with that sort of thing and mental health as well. But I love that you're channeling that into those kinds of like. I just want to give you a big hug and thank you for being like a positive influence and role model for people to say like you're 25 and you're crushing it and you're showing people that you can balance it and you are making these aren't I mean everyone has to grow up at some point and start making like big kid decisions. We have to say like, oh, is it this or this? And then just like a wrestler who sacrifices everything for being on the indies and making $30 a night and doing all that kind of thing. I mean, the same idea is like you have to make your $30 a night, or you have to like pick, can I go to this thing or do I need to go to this thing or do I, and I mean, but I admire the fact, and you should be really proud of yourself for the fact that you were able to acknowledge and assert like some dominance over that. A lot of people would just let that ride. I mean, a lot of people would just, and they would, and not pick themselves up and not like turn it around. And that is like a good message for people that are out there struggling with the same things that you are. And we see the same story, whether it's in wrestlers or in people in wrestling content and right here on this very show. I mean, wrestling's been a big part of my personal recovery as a chronically ill disabled human being. Like it's been as big a part in that way, and having good people to follow wrestling about and learn wrestling from is hard. And that's why it's great when people like you come along. But I mean, just high five. Like, seriously.
I really appreciate
Love
it.
that. That is like, I love that wrestling does that for people.
Absolutely. And I think like for me, I think that's why I take it so seriously. Because I know what this stuff can do. Wrestling connects, wrestling heals.
Yes.
Wrestling can solve problems to help. Wrestling brings people together. Like I've seen what it can do. And like, like, hey, like I take things pretty seriously sometimes, even though I'm like a really big goofball, because I realize like if we do this right, and I mean like not just the wrestlers, but the content creators, everybody who covers stuff, if we do this right, I do truly believe we can save lives. Like I truly believe that we can save lives. And so yeah, like when some people like to say it's just wrestling, it's not just wrestling. These are people, like I think that so many people have a wrestling saved my life story or saved somebody I know, like, and even like my friends like who don't watch wrestling, like they're so grateful to it because they're just like, I know where you were, like, this time last year, and like you just are so much happier and just like, so right. and it's so funny because people always say like, oh, like you just came out of nowhere. No, I've actually always been here. Like right. I've only just finally like pull the trigger on myself, like just right. Finally like saying like, I'm gonna bet on what I can do. Like I'm gonna give myself a shot.
Which is incredible.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's hard. I'm not gonna pretend it's easy. Like school,
sure, of course not.
School and work and wrestling, and not even just like the talking about wrestling. Because I feel like a lot of people talk about wrestling, but they don't watch wrestling as much as they should. Like to really be able to properly cover it and all the nuances.
Sure.
Like watching it really takes up the most time. Like keeping up with like I try to keep up with anywhere between 3 to 8 promotions on any given week.
Incredible.
And most of them are foreign.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's really tough with the I mean, I was having a discussion this week with a friend because this is actually like kind of like Sam said, someone from Fight Game Media connected us. This is a friend of mine was saying how lucky we were to have Fumi Saito out there in the world because of his ability to translate foreign wrestling, like Japanese wrestling, to us in a way that we can understand it, and to give us this breadth of knowledge that we've been able to like get from him and garner from him. And like he's made people that like I mean I subscribed to New Japan right around the same time as you. It was like 2018 or so. And I mean, there was no looking back. And I love that style. And that's kind of my number one promotion. So it was really like, but I was like, yeah, I think more understanding from that came from someone that, has interacted with our networks and with people we know and love and are part of our, podcast fam, as it were. And so it was really great and I love that there's more people, especially our age, your age. I mean, I'm a couple years older than you, but it's good because both of our age groups are learning new stuff about these things. And that's how wrestling lasts till like the kids that we're looking at right now turn 25 and 45. Like that's how we keep having wrestling when we're 85. And
that's a really great point too, because I will say like that's also one of the things that I'm very interested in, and like with my academic career, and like one thing that I would love to eventually like fuse with like what I do with wrestling is like more so the history aspect of. We see it more so now than ever than with like today's misinformation age, but specifically in wrestling we lack like a transparent public history, accessible public history. Everything specifically before 2000 is owned by WWE or is behind a paywall of observers. And just because like we don't have a lot of true like wrestling historians, specifically here in North America, like Japan is like a different ballgame. Mm-hmm. But specifically here in North America, like we lack that information. Like there's no professional wrestling museums, you know?
Right.
Most of the relics from our childhood, from numerous promotions, are locked up in that WWE warehouse right now.
Right.
All WWE stuff, all of WCW stuff, all of ECW stuff, all the stuff from the territories. You know, like, you know, not AEW, Tony Khan obviously purchased the Ring of Honor tape library. So he has the two of the most, you know, the biggest tape libraries. And so, like, so much of information is not readily available. And I think, like, specifically for my generation, does not know wrestling history because, you know, we came up during a time there were no competitors, you know, there were no challenger brands. So, like, I started watching wrestling in 2006, a few years after WCW fold. So I'm 25, and most of my, like, you know, people in my age group, they have the same story, you know, so they don't really remember multiple promotions. So, you know, like, there was never really a time where, like a WCW or AEW, where, you know, luchadors are coming in so you can see what's happening in Mexico, or Japanese talent is coming in so you can see what's happening over there. So people have a very small view of what wrestling is.
That's a really excellent point, because I've never, you know, and because something I talk about a lot is, you know, the historians who are, you know, that are there, that they look a certain way. And they, like, because I was watching, I remember thinking I was watching the first, and I've talked about it before, like watching the first season of Dark Side of the Ring, like the historians are like Dave Meltzer and Jim Cornette, and it's all older white men. I'm like, when do we get to the historians, when it's people of color, when it's women historians, when they're, you know, who watch wrestling through a different lens than people in the 80s did? Like, we see things differently. So I'm like, when do we get to that point when we get, you know, when we have this, you know, that, and I didn't really think about it that way about, you know, the younger generation growing, WCW was gone. And so then everything they know is from WWE's point of view, because they put out documentaries. And I see people, I've seen this, a couple come up a few times. They're like, if everything you know about wrestling is from WWE documentaries, you're most likely very misinformed. Absolutely. Because it's a very WWE centric. They make themselves look a certain way. They talk badly about other, you know, about other promotions, or they hide things from other promotions. And so it's a very just one company point of view. And then that's not the truth, or it's not you know, it's not true history and things like that. And so many people are, like you said, they're misinformed because that's where they're getting their information from. Or like, especially if you read, like, if you're going to find out about, like, well, what happened to WCW, what was its demise, but if you're hearing it from Vince McMahon's perspective,
or I mean, you can read like the death of WCW, but that's a Brian Alvarez, so that's, again, it's another, I mean, someone who was younger, but I mean, that's behind. You made the perfect point. Actually, the point that's sticking in my brain is the point about the paywall, which bothers me about all information. I feel the same way about the Washington Post and the New York Times, and I think that is an important point that we need in terms of information in general, is that we could have access to some wrestling knowledge and history in North America. But not all of us can afford to spend $19.99 a month, or $15.99, or even $9.99 a month, you know, to be able to subscribe to all of those things. And so, you know, you're kind of relegated to, I'm lucky I have a decent library, and you can kind of check books out of the library, and that's like, a library card is free, and thank God that still exists.
Right.
But it is an interesting point in the digital age where I'm someone who grew up going to the library. That was, when I was a kid, as it were, there was no internet. There was the library. So I didn't spend hours browsing internet websites. I spent hours browsing stacks of books and figuring out, like, I could still do a card catalog if I tried really hard, I'm sure.
Absolutely. I think that was so. And here's the thing, I'm not against everybody having their own version, because I think, like, especially now, like, as a PhD student, as a researcher, you know, multiple versions of different events are good. You know, like, having more sources to check are great. The problem more so with wrestling is that we don't have multiple. You know, like, there aren't multiple, and, like, you know, like, there's really nothing public that we can really like our encyclopedia. Of course, people write one-off books. I'm actually making my way through a couple like right now. I'm reading Chris Charlton's book about the history of New Japan, which is really good.
Is that the Lions Pride one?
That's on my list.
Yeah,
I'm
most of the way through Eggshells and halfway through Lions Pride. They're very dense. They're excellent.
Very dense.
But they are like 900 pages long or so. And it's like, but I mean, I can't say I do that with econ books sometimes too. So it's fine. Like sometimes I'm just but Chris Charlton has a great voice, but they take time to get
it through. Reads like a textbook. And I mean, and that's also the thing too. I feel like because a lot of people don't, do the history, when people actually do it, they have to literally do like all of it. Like, there's no condensed version. There's no, like, what's the Cliff Notes version? Like, there's no website that you can really go on without going through like literally pages and pages and pages of stuff. So like, think about it for the younger generation, especially I think for us, Gen Z, who has the attention span of a teaspoon. Most of us, like, who's going to read through all? Like, me, like, obviously, like, I've realized, like, I'm a freak, like, I'm weird, so I do stuff like that. But like, I'm not the norm, Like,
right?
And so I realized, like, when you try to explain stuff, people aren't going to read all that, like, And so I do think like it's something that we need, and that's something that like I feel like. I think some sides are open to, obviously some sides are not. And like, even now, like, it's been really cool. I've been meeting like scholars virtually, obviously, but from around the world, like from Australia. And like, they're all saying the same thing. Like, they're all saying the same thing of like, how do we like get together and like get some of this done? And so like, that's also one of the things that I would love to, like, I don't want to do media forever. I don't. Like, I literally don't. I would love to do stuff. I feel like obviously I do think like some of the stuff that I do is like, good, but I'm always, if anybody like looks me up or my history, I'm always thinking about what is substantive, like how do we really make an impact that lasts? And like, I'm all about giving information to people because I think that's what's important.
Yeah,
like that, like a world history book of wrestling, as opposed to the closest I know is like one of the first wrestling books a friend gave me was The Squared Circle by Dave Shoemaker, and that's a quick listen on Audible. I think it's in the 6-hour range. It's but I mean, when you're talking about, I mean, I've got Eggshells and Lions Pride on Audible, and they are, it would take a day or two.
I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was my entire point was just that like that's the only one that's really out there that's even close, and it still leaves out so much stuff. Like, it's a good starter if you're someone like me or Lyric or Nerds, where we go, okay, I'll jot down all those little things and go read books about those individuals.
Right.
Like, I'm going to read 500 pages on Memphis now today. Like,
the territories, like, it's some dense stuff. I will say, I used to like be obsessed with like wrestler autobiographies growing up. Like, I had like I said, I have 2 copies of Adam Copeland on Edge, and I read Bret Hart's book. Never had seen him wrestle, by the way. Never had even seen him wrestle.
So cute.
I read, like, I don't know. And that's a dense book, by the way. Like, it's like this thick. And I'm in middle school. Yeah, I'm reading.
Nice.
I'm reading Hitman, guys. Just Hitman. Like, I literally, what is it? I have, right here, I have, like, Chris Jericho's Undisputed book.
Oh, nice.
The world champion in 1,372 easy steps. So,
I've read.
I have boxes too. Yeah,
I've read the first 3 Jericho books, but I don't think I read the 4th. I think the 4th one is the one that's like, the one that you just had. I think that's the one I have not read yet. I read the other 3, and then I still need to read Mox, because I can't go back and forth on. I want to read Mox's book, but I also kind of want to listen to the audio because I want to hear him. but then I think I would read it in his voice anyway. Because he has such a distinctive voice.
You definitely do.
And so I do, but I was like, yeah, that's definitely one that like I have got to. I used to read, like I still have on my bookshelf, like I have China's autobiography, and I have the Hardy Boys, like when their first book, like my sister and I went to, they did a book signing for their first book, and my sister and I went and met them, and they personalized the book to us, and like I've got to find it. There's a picture of me and Nikki where we met them at their book signing. So yes, I was also a wrestling nerd who read autobiographies, and I've got like I've read Rey Mysterio's, I've read Goldberg's. Yeah, so I'm right there with you.
I read all of JR's and one of Chris Jericho's last year. So
you said you have Tana's?
China.
Oh, I was about to say, like, do you have the English version? I've been looking for English version of Tana's autobiography. I've been looking for it.
I don't know. Did they exist?
I hope so.
That would be great.
I hope that they do.
I'm tempted to get one like made for me. Like I'm so tempted to like literally get somebody to like translate it. I'm sure like there's like an online service you can do. Like
there's probably some way to get to it.
Yeah, like I want, like that's also the thing too. Like I want to read all the Japanese ones. Like Hisame like translated like the first half of Mayor Fuji's autobiography. So I read the whole thing, but like there's no second half, and so
so you need it. So now you're on. Now it's like the longest cliffhanger ever.
Exactly. Like so I need like all the stuff from like the Japanese legends. Like I literally want to read. And so
yeah, that would be really cool.
Just like translated like yesterday.
I would be into that too. I've dipped my toe in getting started learning Japanese. I was doing okay with the first alphabet, so I just needed to.
I'm such a loser, and I say this because I've been saying, because I'm actually going to Japan for the New Year's holiday.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think hopefully, fingers crossed, I should be able to hit the Stardom, Noah,
and
Wrestle Kingdom and New Year's Dash. And hopefully
it's like a dream trip.
Like I said, year 25, we're
yeah. And that's kind of close to your deadline too.
Jealous.
Very close to the deadline. And so, but yeah, I said all this to say, I said, yeah, I'm gonna learn Japanese. And so I've been playing like these videos at night, trying to, and like, it's just like they say, if you play like these long videos of Japanese words, you'll wake up knowing more. And so I'm just trying to like let it soak in. Like
Duolingo.
That's what I'm saying. Are you using Duolingo? Because my sister is actually using Duolingo.
Duolingo is what helped me. It's what helped my friend, who is now actually, he's using eTalk, I think, or it's called eTalkie or eTalk. And you can get a tutor as well through that situation. But Duolingo got me pretty far. I started to, and then there's some free ones you can download from Pimsleur that are like conversational Japanese that are like, usually you can get them off like YouTube and so forth. But we were going to go the year of the Olympics, which was the year they shut the world down, because we were going to go to the G1 in the fall, because they moved it to the fall because they had the Summer Olympics there. But unfortunately, the plague decided to shut down the world that year. So our Japan trip got postponed. But I've been to both Forbidden Doors, so I can't complain.
I went this year. So
I went to both the last year and this year.
You're lucky. Yeah,
I am lucky.
Yes,
I've been to.
I tell her all the time, like, yeah, you're lucky.
No, I am lucky. I've been to a few shows that I know. Like I've been to 2 WrestleManias. I went to Madison Square Garden for that Supercard. That was, and then I got to go to Chicago, and Toronto was driving distance for us, fortunately. So
yeah, I did,
because of where I am.
I did Full Gear last year. I did Ring of Honor Final Battle last year.
Nice.
I did Forbidden Door this year. Obviously, I did All In. And then I did Wrestle Dream. I also did New Japan Capital Collision and All-Star Junior Fest this year, too. So
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, I'm catching up I'm making up for lost
Yeah,
time.
that's a thing. Yeah, you
No,
are.
I'm making
Plus,
up
you
for
saw
lost-
some cool cities in the meantime. Like Seattle is a great. I lived in Seattle for 13 years.
It was
so.
really cool. I will say, I'm not sure I've ever tasted air that clean.
Wow,
I'm not
that's
sure I've ever
in the
tasted
summer. In the summer, it's not like that. So just
Yeah, it was. I said, "Oh my gosh, this air just tastes so clean."
oh, it's wonderful out there. When you get out of the city, man, it's the best.
It's so funny that you were just in Seattle because I have friends of mine are on their honeymoon in Seattle and they're like on their way back. And then my cousin was there for she's a hairstylist and she was there at one of the schools showing them some stuff because she works for the Aveda here in Charlotte and they're opening one in Seattle. And so she was just there. And I'm like, you people don't well, I was like, you guys don't watch wrestling and don't even know what's happening today while
There's
you're there
like
in
three
Wrestle
big,
Dream. I'm like, there's like a dream matching happening, and you guys don't even know.
There's like 3 hair institutes out there. That's like,
Yeah. And so I was gonna ask, and this kind of brings it back to Wrestle Dream. So you mentioned that you went to Wembley, and so you also asked a question that went viral. So following that, did you feel like, so maybe compared to that and being in the scrum for Wrestle Dream, did you feel any difference in the room? Did you feel like, oh, here's Lyric, she's gonna ask me something, or did you just feel like no change at all, or was it just, did you feel any type of difference between the two scrums?
I did, but it was really a positive difference. It was really a positive difference. I truly, I think my thing is, you can tell when people, and I think it's all because it all comes from posture. And I mean that by the sense of, you can tell when people are asking questions because they want clickbait, they want a dunk, they want to, like, you know, they want a story. Me, when I go into these scrums, I genuinely just try to ask the questions that I want answered. I'm a nerd.
Sure.
I'm a fan. So like, you know, this is, and I've honestly been waiting just about for we're coming up on about just about my entire life for opportunities like this.
Right.
And so I don't want to squander it, but also at the same time, I also do say part of this as a fan because I love AEW. Like I'm ride or die all elite. So when I ask questions, it's because I want the product to be better. And so
exactly. That's how I approach it as well. I'm the same way because people will come at me and they're like, "Oh, that you're doing this because you're a WWE fan." I don't watch WWE anymore. I haven't. I want AEW to be better because it's the product I watch mostly. Besides that, New Japan. And so I feel I'm glad to hear you say that because that's exactly how I feel about it. And and it's coming from and so like, I guess it is like you said, it's coming from a place where they know that you're coming from a place of, you're not trying to get the gotcha moment or trying to, trying to be rude or anything. You're trying to come at it as genuinely, whether it's a criticism or not, which I think it's okay to criticize. And like, I don't know why people don't understand. It's okay to criticize things that you like and that you love because you want them to be better. You're not criticizing them just to be, because especially, with wrestling Twitter, it can be a place where they criticize just to criticize, but then there's criticizing to be better and to get better. And so I really appreciate and that question, and I DM'd you that, and I told you, I was like, that question you asked is something I would have asked. So I applaud you for doing that. And it was so would you say that you learned anything from asking that question in Wembley? Does it give you more confidence to ask other things, or would you hold back on maybe not asking certain things, or did it change the way you approach media scrums at all?
No. I mean, don't get me wrong. I appreciate like the support that I got from it, but like, I wasn't scared or anything, and like, I wasn't worried, and I wasn't even worried afterwards because like, this isn't my first rodeo. This is my first rodeo in wrestling, but like I said, like, I have a big activist background. Like, I've looked politicians in the face and like said much worse. Like said much worse.
Sure.
Like, I looked straight into TV cameras and like essentially said like F the governor. Like good
for you.
I will say, so like, that background specifically in politics, even though like I know that's not what I want to do anymore, it really does help me in wrestling. Like because like a lot of things just genuinely do not faze me. And I think also is just my thing is this, like if you feel that if you go into a room, specifically for wrestling, and you feel like if you go in there and if you ask a question that's worth a damn, that you will never be invited back, 9 times out of 10, that's not a room that you really want to be in. I can't speak for anybody else's experience, but like for me personally, like
Definitely.
I didn't have any problems. And honestly, in Wrestle Dream, I got called on more.
You did.
I literally ever have. And I sat in front row. And like I will say, like Tony remembered my name and he called on me. And, like, you know, and he answered my questions very thoroughly, which I was shocked about because, you know, it's not always like that.
Right.
But, and you didn't take any damage like John Muse, which is excellent.
I didn't. Like,
no water bottles thrown at you.
Yeah, right. Like I didn't. I mean, I will say, I feel like, you know, if that ever happened to me, like I kind of would probably take it as a battle scar. Like I don't know. Like,
we joked. We actually, to be fair, we joked with a few of us joked with him about that in private, and he was like, "Yeah, I mean, you know." He's like, "I'm not gonna lie, we're all color brother." Yeah,
I was in the room when that happened. That was my first scrum, so Forbidden Door.
Oh my gosh!
Oh wow!
I was there. Yeah, I was there. And so that was nuts. But yeah, so I realized like I am, especially these last couple, I've been 3 of the last 4 pay-per-views. I'm the only Black woman that's consistently in that room.
Sure, yeah.
At least in recent history, there were more at the Wrestle Dream scrum, which I'm very, very, very happy about. But consistently over a course of time, like I'm a face that's been seen numerous times, and so I realized that this is the worst possible place for me to shrink. This is the worst possible place for me to shrink who I am, what I do, how I act, because I realized that when I go in there, I don't have the luxury of just being able to say, well, oh, this is just for me. Like, no, like, yeah, I will be the standard to which every other woman who wants to get into this room, every other Black woman, one who wants to be in this room, they will be held.
Right.
And it shouldn't be like that, but that's just where we are with wrestling, specifically wrestling media. This is not something that I ever really planned on. Like I said, I've always wanted to be in wrestling, the media part. Now, I didn't know that that was where my life was going to take it, but I do take it serious. And also at the same time, it's like, because I am paying for all of my travel.
Right.
I paid for this flight.
Right.
Yeah. I paid for this flight to Seattle. I paid for this flight to Toronto.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I'm leaving with something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I didn't come here to joke. Like, you know,
right.
Like, I didn't come here to just I didn't come here just to be here. Like,
right, exactly. Just to get your foot in the door, to come in, like you said, just be there and be in the room and not do anything. And I guess you kind of answered where I was, something else I was gonna say, and I was like, do you feel an obligation as a woman to do certain to keep going and to keep doing these things? Because I think, like, even for myself, like, it's an obligation that I subconsciously have about covering women in wrestling particularly and pushing for certain things. And so it's not something like I set out to do. And it sounds like you're kind of in the same boat. It's not something you set out to do, but now that you're in that space, you kind of feel like, do you feel like you have to kind of keep going with that? Or do you feel like it's expected of you now? Or is it just something that it's because it just motivates you more?
It is 100% expected out of me, but it also motivates me. Like, and I think just because, like, I love it. Like, I do love, not the attention, but I love being around wrestling. Like, this is, like, sure. I said, this was my dream. So, like, whether people have seen me before this year, that doesn't mean like that wasn't what I was always leading to. So, like, I don't really care what people think, because, like, you can ask anybody who grew up with me, like, the proof is in the pudding. Like, I've been obsessed with this for a very long time. 17 years tomorrow.
Right. Down to the date.
But I do think, like, no, I do realize, especially now, like, my goal, I do want more women in the rooms. I especially want more Black women in the rooms. That is what I want. That is what I want. And I'm not going to I'm not going to be like lie about it. That's my dream, because the thing is, I know I get DMs from women all the time like, oh man, like I know, I wish I could have been there, or I don't even know where to start to get in the rooms, or I got rejected for applying for this because they said that I'm not a serious enough media, because that happens.
Sure.
Like, that happens. People get rejected. I used to get rejected from stuff. Like, you know, like I used to get rejected from stuff. And it's always until you're with the quote unquote right outlet and stuff. And I think that's why that's where the being upset comes from. I think about like when other people, like how others use their opportunities. You can ask whatever you want. Like you are perfectly entitled to asking whatever you want. Nobody's trying to be the police. Like, you know, like, hey, I haven't all of my questions that I ask are not super serious. Like I asked Christian Cage, when you say you want to be the father figure of AEW, what does that entail? We were clearly all really joking around.
Sure.
But I do think there's a time and place for everything. And we do need to acknowledge the double standards in wrestling. Like we do need to, women don't get, we don't get the luxury of people being writing off our mistakes as a little jokey joke, you know?
Right. And that kind of, I guess, will lead into, well, first of all, I would go over to the comments. We have Gray who says, hard questions help make things better. Exactly. And then Nikki said that she agrees with that. And so that kind of leads us into what happened last night. For those of you who did not see, I didn't see it. I saw a lot of people talking about it on my Twitter account. I follow the person who asked the question.
Yes, fill me in here.
So there was a question last night at the media scrum. Because last night was WWE Fastlane.
Okay,
EO Sky. Yes, I'm about to tell her what she used to go by. EO was in there, and she was asked by a man if she would wrestle Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And it got, and then I think her answer was, "Are you crazy?" or something like that, something along those lines. She did later on. She tweeted a picture, and it was her and her title, and she was like, "Who's the next person to challenge me? It's not Taylor Swift," or something like that. So I get, on the one hand, Taylor Swift is obviously, a lot of people are talking about her because of, she's got a lot of things going on. Obviously, there's the Travis Kelce thing, but from what I understand, there were either a lack of women in the room as far as journalists go, or there were no women at all. And so I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on the question that was asked. Was it appropriate to ask in a scrum, or is it something that's more for a personal blog? Or like, just what are your thoughts on questions like that in general, and the questions that women tend to get in these type of situations?
Okay, I'm going to preface everything I have about to say. I don't watch WWE. I don't. So I don't want to give anything in bad faith. I did catch like the last few minutes of the Asuka EO Charlotte match, just because like I do like those people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a question I would have asked, and I will be honest, it's not a question that I would have even thought of. Like I would, and I don't think a lot of women would have thought of, specifically Black women would have thought of. And the reason why I say this is that we're already taken so unseriously when it does the wrestling, because there's this, this decades old assumption that when women want to be in wrestling, it's solely because we want proximity to wrestlers.
Yep.
And we want to, and that's what we want.
Groupies.
Like that's the groupies, ring rats.
Yep.
Ring rats.
Ring rats.
We want access to it's the same. I mean, I said this to Sam last week, and I know that she's not as much of a gamer as me, but some of the things that went on with that, with the misogyny that came out of that situation, was directly related to women being accused of wanting proximity to high-level game journalists and things like that. And it was the same thing. They went straight for you just want to sleep with these guys. And it's like, back the truck up, like
right.
No, that's simply
right.
That's no, actually trying to like do this job. And so I would have answered. I wish she had answered in Japanese, actually.
And so I think that's where a lot of the frustration comes from. And I don't think it was a good question. Like,
no, it wasn't.
And this is why, and I don't know how WWE media scrums are set up. But
me either, because I've never been to one. I don't cover WWE, so I'm the same boat.
I can only speak from like my limited experience of what I know from AEW scrums, and also what I know from just other press conferences from other situations in my professional life, because I have been in several, so that whether that's been political press conferences, college football conferences back when I was in college, or obviously the AEW ones. I just don't think that the question was relevant, and like the way that scrums and press conferences are typically set up, they're not interviews, so it's not like one person being able to ask over and over again.
Sure, right.
I would always say, I just don't understand like where that would come from. I'm gonna be honest, I just don't know where that would come from. I understand this was super popular, but also at the same time, EO had just wrestled like a 16-minute match,
something like that. Yeah,
two of the best women's wrestlers in the world.
Right.
I genuinely don't believe that there were nothing else that you could have asked, and I think that it just makes it all very unserious. Like I will say, like, and the thing is, wrestling journalism is already very, very like different than other forms of journalism, where not like a lot of people, went to school for journalism or really understand the core tenets of journalism. Like even for me, like I do have a minor in journalism.
My degree is in communications with a focus in journalism. So yeah,
exactly. So and I just. It's weird. And here's the thing. I don't know the guy. He could probably do really great work outside of this. But I just don't think that the question was appropriate. And I know that other people would literally kill to be in these rooms. And I think especially for WWE. There's
and I've seen that argument too. They're like, well, it's WWE, but that's not the point. Like the point is, first of all, if it's WWE, then the question should have been Cardi B, because Cardi B says she wants to go to WrestleMania. So that would have made more sense.
At least be educated.
Right. 100%. And that shows that you've been, keeping up with your finger on
because Cardi B even did an interview like what, a week or two ago, and she was talking about like,
I think she was on Hot Ones, like
she was talking about wanting to be on WrestleMania and like what, like
Melina. She said
So I was like, that would have, it still would have not been appropriate for a media scrum after she just wrestled that match. However, that would have made more sense than Taylor Swift. And yes, I get Taylor Swift is in a lot of topic and a lot of conversation right now. And people are like, oh, well, Bill Belichick is being asked about that. Okay, but that's in the NFL where she's at these games. That's a little bit different. But this is a women's champion and women are already like, it's hard to get you don't take women's wrestling seriously as it is. And then you're asking questions about Taylor Swift. That just perpetuates the fact that you don't think women's wrestling is serious, is how I feel that it comes off. And then from somebody else said that they nobody apparently asked about Jade. Like, you didn't ask the champion. Jade is here. She arrived in the pre-show. What do you think about Jade being here? Do you think she's a threat?
They actually replayed that clip right before the women's match. Like I had read that. It was really weird. I'm gonna be honest. Like the Taylor Swift stuff, it annoyed me. What really, really annoyed me more was the asking John Cena to touch him. That was what really.
Yeah,
and touching him on camera, like there's a video of him actually going to touch him. Because if any woman had done that, the label that we would have gotten, like, I can't imagine. Like, imagine if Wrestler G and Kenny Omega, can I touch you?
Right.
Yeah. And what would you? And then that would be Lyric is only there because she wants to meet wrestlers and she wants to physically touch them. That's what the narrative would be.
That's the narrative. Like, that's literally the narrative. That's the narrative. Like, I can't even imagine the stuff that wouldn't even. And I think that's the thing. These are things that wouldn't cross women who are serious about this that ever cross their minds.
Right.
Nothing that we would ever even think about, because we know we would be buried. I tweeted it. I said, imagine if a Black content creator got up there and asked Bianca Belair, when is she going to wrestle Beyonce? We would have gotten laughed out of there.
Oh my God, the Twitter hate.
Yeah.
But literally, I would have had to delete my account.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like it's one thing to because I was thinking about because for the company that he writes for, it's a wrestling news company in the UK. So perhaps that's the clickbait type of things that they like. And I'm
You know what?
sure
They
his
do. I
bosses
mean,
are
they love
happy
their
with him.
tabloids there.
But in a media space like this, it's different. Like if he was conducting an interview one-on-one with EO and had been asking some other things, then throws that out there. There's a difference between interviewing someone and asking these questions than being in a media scrum where you've got, or on a media call where you've got one question, one shot, and that's the question you go with, and it doesn't do anything. Women are having a hard time getting women's wrestling, especially in WWE, to be taken seriously. Not just in AEW and WWE, where they've been, women we had to have hashtags about give divas a chance. They were getting bra and panty matches. Now you've got somebody of EO's caliber, one of the best women's wrestlers in the world,
easily.
And this is a question you ask her, like, be serious.
I mean, it's constantly happening. Like even like 2 scrums that I've been to, not 2 that I've been to actually, 2 because I wasn't at All Out, but I obviously watched it, and then
Sure.
Wrestle Dream. It's like the lack of questions for Chris Statlander.
Yeah,
and, like people aren't prepared. Like, and so this is happening. Like, it's not just a WWE thing.
It's happening in both companies. And yeah, and people and even on, like, I've heard it on media calls, like, because I generally, even if I don't get to ask a question, then I generally am live tweeting these, and it's so funny because I always say, see, wrestling journalists / content creators ask softball questions, and you need to ask more serious stuff. Well, then you have this happen, and then they're like, oh, it's fine, it's funny, it's pop culture. Well, which is it? Which standard are you holding us to today?
Exactly. And it's just been very frustrating because, like, some people are like, oh, well, you can't really control it. You really can't. And I agree with that. And I'm not saying that the answer is screen everybody's questions. Because I'm going to be honest, I rarely like write stuff down before the scrums.
Yeah.
Because, I'm trying to, 1, enjoy the show, but then also 2, you don't know what's going to happen in the show. And so, like, you're always just trying to, like, whatever, be willing, to think up stuff on the spot. So I'm not saying that we need to script everything. But I do think that we do need to be a lot more intentional about who is in these rooms. And, I don't know, because I can't, like I said, I can't speak for any of the companies, but who comes in and they have actual substantial questions for your talent. And who comes in and asks their fan questions. Mm-hmm. And those are 2 completely different things. Right. And I think also specifically at these scrums and these press conferences, you have to protect your talent as well, because these people have wrestled, very not times if it's a pay-per-view, they've wrestled very long, grueling matches, physical matches. Mm-hmm. They are already tired. They are already exhausted. They are already beat up. And you don't want them to feel like their time is wasted. Like and specifically for female talent, and I think specifically for Japanese talent, like, already this language barrier, and it's just like it's this constant, because in American wrestling, and I think specifically on the WWE side, AEW is a little bit different because they have actual partnerships with, Japanese organizations. Mm-hmm. But specifically on this WWE side, I don't think that they've ever gone all in on treating Japanese talent, or not even just Japanese talent, foreign talent. And when I say foreign talent, non-English speaking talent, with the utmost, respect. Like, how, non-English speaking talent has been portrayed over the years is ebbed and flowed. I think obviously right now they're probably doing better than they ever have. Sure. I can say in this lane, but it's still this, we don't take Japanese talent seriously. Right. We don't respect specifically Joshi talent. And it's happened all over the world. And as Joshi wrestling becomes more popular, and I think it's more popular than it ever has been, at least here in the West, taking over all of our indies, taking over,
well, now you have Sukiban who's here.
Yes.
Clearly they know that there's a market that they're tapping into.
Absolutely. We have Spark Joshi Pro. We have Tokyo Joshi Pro just sold out their show during WrestleMania weekend. The Joshi talent in AEW performs very well and always are crowd favorites. Obviously, look at WWE, Asuka, Io, Kyrie, like whenever she was very popular people. And so I feel like now people are like forced to pay attention, but like rather than like do the work, man. That's what I'm saying. Just do the work. There's a million questions.
Cody Rhodes is right there telling you, do the work.
There's a million questions you can ask Io Shirai. Like literally.
I just don't know how nobody asked about Jade.
I do think that's really peculiar. Just because like she was clearly at the show. That would have been the perfect time. Like that's a very,
and of course it's a generic, and you're probably going to get a generic answer. But I mean, it makes sense. Like you need to ask. Jade is, especially the way they've treated her. I keep saying that they're treating her like a #1 draft pick. Like they're giving her all this pomp and circumstance, which is phenomenal, and it treats her like the star that she is. But then you don't ask about her in a media scrum. Not one person thinks, let me ask the women's champion about this new woman who is coming in. Does she think Jade's coming for her spot? Does she want to align with Jade? Would she like to work with Jade? Would she like to add Jade to Damage Control? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling though, some of these situations that we keep. And so I think I was like, we do need to have a conversation about what is appropriate to add, not really appropriate. I feel like, because I don't, like you said, I don't want to police it. Absolutely. But also like you've got to use your questions wisely. And that is not, I mean, sure, I guess it's wise if you're getting clickbait for your company and your boss is going to be happy. But
that's the thing, because I realized like everybody is looking to get something different out of this. So like you might go into a scrum and you're just like, okay, like I want substantial quotes that I can write an article off of. Or I want substantial quotes that, like I can add to my reel at the end of the year. Or just substantial quotes that I know are going to be really relevant to the show that we just watched. And I know that it's going to get people talking. There's a complete different, like some people have completely different motivations. Some people are just like, okay, there's no such thing as bad press. So as long as people are talking, and like that's what I'm saying. Like I come from a political background, so I've seen candidates. Hey, as long as people are talking, that's what works. Like there's no such thing. Like we just need there to be buzz. We just need people to know that election day is happening. We just need people to know that our campaign is out there. And so that's also the thing too of just like we're not all on the same side. And I knew that in the sense of like we don't all have the same motivation. So it's really hard to like the thing is like obviously a conversation needs to be had, but until like we all have the same motivations, it's really hard to like regulate just about anything. Just because, like hey, everybody has their own. Everybody's trying to get something very different out of this.
Yeah. They really are. And so I think we've got a lot to talk about. I mean, as far as we've already like an hour in, but but I wanted to ask that because it was really important. So and then you were there at Wrestle Dream, and I know that you got to ask Adam Copeland questions. And so what have you thought about him being? What are your thoughts on him being in AEW?
I'm so happy. I couldn't be happy, but no, seriously, I feel like
that's awesome.
I remember he was my childhood favorite wrestler. Like I loved Edge growing up. Like when I say like I was obsessed with him, he was the first wrestler like I feel like I really fell in love with like when I was a kid. And so like when he retired, I think how old was I? I was like 13 or something. Like I remember exactly where I was sitting. I remember how my room used to be set up at that time. I had these ugly Barbie pink walls. I literally had this I was in a twin size bed. There was a dresser like right next to it, TV on top of the dresser. And I remember he announced he retired. I'm just watching I just cried. Like I sobbed. I felt like the world was over. Like I thought the world was crashing down. I loved him so much. And I also remember like when like going back to like I used to get the network things, like outside of NXT, I used to love watching Edge and Christian's show that totally reeks from this. And like, you know, so when he finally returned to WWE, like I did watch, like, you know, like his return. I remember his Royal Rumble return was on the same day that Kobe died, and like I was just, oh, it was
That's
great.
right.
I cried so much that day for so many reasons.
That was a weird day. That whole day was messed up.
Whole day was wrecked, and like and also like as more time goes by, like I kept up with like some of his stuff, like, and like I especially like when he first started the Judgment Day and then the feud with Dom, like I really did keep up, but it became really apparent to me around that time that like I had really outgrown WWE. Like I obviously really loved him, really happy to see him wrestling again, really happy to see him back in action, but like I just knew that like, WWE wasn't for me. So like I will say like I didn't catch a lot of his last run in
a little bit of it.
Saw a little bit, but like it, but you know, I was just like, okay, hey, wish you the best. But when he came to AEW, it finally felt like my childhood love for wrestling and like my adult resurgence that I've been on finally came together.
Yeah.
And it just felt so complete. Like I really just felt so complete. I just sat there and cried. Like I was just so happy. I was just so happy to be a fan, to be there. It felt really full circle for me.
I'm sure.
And I think like to go in the scrum and be like ask like one of the first questions to this.
Yeah. That was so cool.
Idolized for my entire life and kept up with. Like that was just amazing. Yeah, I love it. I'm also gonna turn my camera off for a second. I need to go get my charger before this.
Sure, go right ahead. That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. Yeah, and God, yeah, I'm so happy to see Edge there, and I like the. I guess we'll get into. I wait until she comes back because I want to ask her thoughts on Wednesday. But I was glad to see Edge there. So, what did you think of Edge's his debut appearance Wednesday night and his segment with Christian?
Oh, I love it. I love it. And the reason why I love it is because of this. I've loved Christian Cage for a very, very long time.
Me too.
He's been great.
Yeah, I was a huge Edge and Christian fan and a huge Hardy Boys fan. So this has been like teenage me is super excited about the possibilities that could potentially happen here.
So the thing about Christian though is like most of like obviously I would go back and like watch the tag matches and stuff, but what I really loved about Christian is everything that I saw from him in TNA. So TNA was the first time that I ever really watched WWE wrestling.
Yeah, yeah.
That's where I really got to know and fall in love with Christian. So in my mind, Christian has always been a top guy, but I realized that he wasn't always seen that way by WWE. So even when he came back to WWE, I was just like, this sucks. Like, really, I was like, I don't really like. I don't like. He's the world champion in my eyes. Like I think everything. And so obviously he has neck injuries and go and stuff. And like obviously like they both had like these career ending to a point injuries and like the careers have been up and down. But I felt like overwhelmingly it was always seen as if Edge was the bigger star.
100%. He's always been portrayed that way.
Absolutely. And so and obviously in AEW, Christian has just been just absolutely incredible. Like just literally insane.
Yeah, this is probably, I don't know if I would say, probably his best run. I mean, it just
absolutely.
Yeah.
It is 100%.
He's just he's found this new level at 49 years old. That's 49. Insane.
And I said that. I said that to say, like, I feel like for the first time in their careers, even though I've always felt like they were both top guys, but the company that they're in sees them as equals.
Yes.
And I feel like, we haven't even scratched the surface of how good this can get.
Yeah.
Because like, I feel like that was always the power differential. Because like, like WWE never saw them as equals.
No, they didn't.
Never went to TNA. And so like, but we're finally on a level to where they're both being seen as equals. And honestly, Christian might be seen as a little bit better.
Yeah.
So
especially if you compare what Edge was doing in WWE on his way in and what Christian has been doing the last year or so.
Absolutely. Came in, started wrestling Kenny Omega because, whoa, that's just a thing we do.
Yeah.
And so that was just, I'm just really happy for them. And I've always loved their friendship and just like how it stood the test of time of like, they never let any of like the criticism like affect them, like their family. And like, it's just really cool. And I'm gonna be honest, like I really love how their friendship is bigger than any wrestling company. And like, he was just flat out like, I want to finish my wrestling career with my best friend. So wherever I have to go to do that, I'm going to do it. And I think like that's what's so special about professional wrestling. No one company owns it. Like some bonds are thicker than any money you can offer. And it's just really cool. And it's cool that they're doing an AEW, like my favorite American promotion. Like,
I
genuinely couldn't be happier.
And I thought Edge was great, but just Christian, the way he just like had to like force himself to even look Christian. I mean, Edge or Adam in the eye. I've got to get used to calling him Adam. I had been doing really good with it. Then now I'm like, no, Edge. But Adam Copeland, just to see Adam Copeland, first of all, looks so happy. And he looks like he genuinely just is so happy to be there that he gets to try all these new things. And then you have Christian who just stays in character and he just like doesn't even want to look at him because it's like Adam will know the truth if he looks him in the eye. And he said like Christian is like deep down, I think is really scared that Adam is there because Adam is the one who has been with him since they were teenagers and he knows him. And I just can't wait to see how that plays out. And
I gotta chime in here because it's so cute because I actually got to watch them during the Attitude Era because I was old enough. I was one of the kids that had the N64 in the college room. And I mean, I was Click Hole did an article about the kids found and lost in 1998, like playing GoldenEye and watching Monday Night Wars. Like I was actually old enough to actually appreciate it. That was when I got into it. Yeah. And what I love about where they are is that even though WWE didn't treat them that way,
they always treated each other that way.
They treated each other that way, and I remember loving them. The Brood, the whole thing, like all this silly crap that got thrown at them, they always they took that silly stuff and made it work. And they were some of the best tag team matches ever watching them. And like when the Hardys were getting started and all of those things. So I did get to actually enjoy them. And so for me, this is like, it's a different kind of nostalgia, like or fun because they did get, there was the injuries and there was the possibility of not returning, but even bigger than that is this, we have a company now. There's an alternative where these gentlemen can finish their careers the way they should finish them and not in embarrassing or, clickbait worthy or body shamey or all of the above or whatever ways. Like they can actually, and in the case of Christian Cage, he's been one of my favorite AEW wrestlers for months. And that's just someone who's missing a dad and wouldn't even care if he healed on me about it. Like, and also, it's But I've joked with a friend of mine because both of us over the years became, part of the Dead Dad Club, as it were. As if you understand our humor, you would understand. But the funniest thing about it was that we were actually joking about, like, I wouldn't even care if he healed on me about it. It would be like it was like a badge of honor. It'd be like, go for it. Just go for it, man.
Just go for it.
I mean, he's done it to all these other people. I'd be like, I am in such honorable company here. I'd be like,
I think he's just been great. Like, and I think, at least, especially, I feel like this year, the AEW product, the pay-per-views have been awesome. But I feel like we'd be lying if we said like it's been all just great and sunshine. Like there's been some moments where the product was a little questionable.
Yeah,
but
I would still be watching that versus anything else.
Absolutely, 100%.
Because I was like, some of this stuff I was like, man, I'm not crazy about, but man, I ain't watching anything else. So
100% correct. But even in the midst of that,
Yeah.
I feel like Christian has been just so consistent. Like
Yeah.
everything he does, everything he has done, he has made everything. The fact that, and I've noticed this is because, for example, the Christian and Jungle Boy feud got stretched out just about a year. Like a full calendar year. He got injured in the middle of this. And guess what? He still managed to make this must see. So when we got to that match, like what was it? The burial, was it a coffin? Did they have a coffin?
Yeah, the burial match, or
yes, the final burial.
Mm-hmm.
When we got to that, this was still hot.
Yeah.
Like this was still hot. Christian was injured, showed up to work in a sling, and was still the most entertaining person on the show.
Yeah.
He was
efficient. He has heat with the entire city of Detroit. He could not, we were there. You could not hear a word that he was saying.
He just managed to make himself, and I think a lot of legends have a hard time doing this, especially once they get later in their careers, of being able to find value and make value wherever they are, in whatever they're doing. He has made himself valuable as a manager. He's made himself valuable as a wrestler. He's made himself valuable as a talker. He's made himself valuable as a heel. He made himself valuable as a face. He has been able to make himself add value to the product in every single thing he's done. And everybody that he has worked with has been uplifted from working with him. And he's also taking crazy bumps. Like,
right?
Yeah. Why? Who are you, dude?
Like, yeah, and that reminds me, I saw somebody tweet the other day, and it was a picture of Christian in a shirt that said "Outwork Everyone," and they were like, "There's never been a more true shirt." Because that's exactly what Christian has done since he's been there. He has, like you said, just over this period of time, he's made himself valuable in all these facets as a babyface, as a heel, and he's nowhere near being done. He is on the top of his game. He's got this title, he's got now Adam is here. That's adding a whole nother layer. And, maybe we get like a quick, we get a little story here and then they cool it off and separate them a little bit. And maybe we get like some more, like I would love to see, I think one of the coolest things would be a friend of mine suggested it is to have them do a singles match in Wembley. Like that to bring like
I'll be there.
I'm gonna manifest my way there and gonna be there with you.
I feel like everybody should come. Like I will say that was the first stadium show I've ever been to. Only stadium show I've ever been to. And I'm really glad that I never been to a stadium show before that. I'm seriously
start at the top.
I'm glad that All In was my first stadium show. Seriously, and I've always said I wanted to go to WrestleMania one day. Maybe I will. I don't know. If it doesn't happen in Philly, I'm not going. But it was just so special. And I will say, like, that was the first time. I'm not sure if this happens at other wrestling events, but like when they announced, like at the end of the show, we're going to be back next year, and it starts flashing on the screen. Literally, everybody starts looking at each other and say, "Oh yeah, we'll be here. Like we're gonna be back." Like even me, I said, I don't know how the hell I'm gonna pay for this, but
yeah, that's like I know. I'm thinking, I'm like, all right, I gotta. What is the passport deadlines? I gotta get mine renewed
like 6 months.
I will 100% be in attendance because, like, and I think
go to the post office.
I think it's going to go even. I think it's going to be. I think this year was just a taste of what they can do, and I think that next year All In is going to be like so much bigger, and it was already pretty big, but like I think that it's going to be so much bigger next year, and I think that this would be the perfect match on that card, like Edge versus Christian the right way, like, and I like you can say whatever you want about Tammy Khan, you can say whatever you want about AEW, but AEW has done a better job of booking over 45 talent than any wrestling company I've seen. Like you have Jeff Jarrett, man. Billy Gunn. Who else? Christian Cage.
Yeah, Sting.
Chris Jericho. Sting. My God.
Yeah, and then you've got. Well, I mean, and then you've got the Hardys that are there.
The Hardys.
And I was like, and I know at some point we're getting Edge and Christian versus Hardys one final time, and I was like, I'm waiting for it. I know we're gonna get it at some point, and then I can't wait for it.
I actually watched the WrestleMania 17
yes
match, and I was just like, bro, like
They made like that's when Edge and Christian and the Hardys like made me a huge tag team wrestling fan. Like I still to this day love tag team wrestling, and it's because of the things that they did. And even there was and then for a long time WWE did not care about tag team wrestling.
Absolutely.
And it just got to, and so I had to go to other places to get my tag team wrestling. And then that's where I would have, sometimes I would have TNA and then sometimes I wouldn't, because the channel, like the cable carrier would have them for a little bit and then they'd just drop them. And then, so like, that's where I got to see like the young, well, they were Generation Me then, but then like I got to see, obviously that's where I fell in love with Motor City Machine Guns. And those are
Matt and Jeremy Buck.
Yep. I could not, it's funny, I could not stand them because I thought they were Hardy Boys ripoffs, not realizing they were inspired by the Hardy Boys. But I thought TNA was trying to have their own version of the Hardy Boys, and so I did not like Generation Me.
I only found out about that gimmick a few years ago.
Yeah.
Like it's been a couple years that I realized they went under Miss Mike and Bill Buck or whatever. I mean, just it was really, I was like, oh, that's so cute. I was like, that's too hilarious.
Yeah.
Those two. I mean, it's because you don't think about it until you start getting into indie wrestling. Like what the road you just. It's like if you're someone like me who came into it a little later in life, it's like they just go straight to the thing and it's fine, right? They're just on the big show, right? There's no like. I didn't learn about indie wrestling until later. It took me a bit to get to where it was like, oh, wrestling in gyms and VA.
Yeah. Because when I went to my local, well, they're no longer in existence, but for 11 years, like that's where I was doing. I was going to indie shows, and they started out when I started going, they were in rec centers and they were in gyms. And like, that's where I saw Cedric Alexander in the beginning. I was watching him.
My 2016 to them closing the world down was basically, we have a Knights of Columbus nearby here in Livonia, and that's where we saw all the Evolve shows, and Shimmer and Shine used to come there, and Progress was there at one point. And so I mean, we used to have like, there's tons. It's Detroit, you can find a wrestling show anytime like around here. It's just whether you can get there
that's
and how good or bad it's going to be.
Not the case here. Like South Carolina gets nothing. North Carolina gets something.
And we did have a regular promotion, and then like DPW did come here to Concord, which is like 30 minutes for me, but they hang out mostly like in Winston-Salem. And then we had a group going on, and then luckily, I don't know if you saw it, but Darius Lockhart's going to be doing his thing. Are you going?
Of course I'm going.
Good. Okay. My sister and I and our friends, we're all going to it.
Yeah, I've reached out to him, so hopefully we can get some stuff together soon. I'm super excited about that show.
Me too.
I love the card. I love everything they're doing. I love like they have performers. They have Loot coming.
Yeah.
I'm a big Dreamville fan. So I love Loot. I actually went to Dreamville Fest last year.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I'm super excited about that show.
I am too. Our sister and I are huge Darius fans because he wrestled for our local promotion for a few years, and he was, we're huge fans of his. And so I was like, I will support Darius in anything that he does. Wherever he goes, I'm right there with him. So Nikki, my sister, she said, I can't wait for that show. So December 1st we have to have you come back and talk about it.
You guys can tell me about it.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be really cool. I'm actually super excited because I'm just like, finally a show that I want to go to that I don't have to book a flight at a hotel for.
Right. Nice.
Yeah.
I don't have to stay at a hotel. I can sleep in my own bed.
I don't have to book a flight. Well, I'm not going to sleep in my own bed, but my best friend lives there.
Oh, nice. Okay, close enough.
Perfect.
Yeah, so
you're still with family then.
Exactly. So that's going to be really
that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I cannot wait for that. And so we talked about it a little bit, but so we have the Tuesday Night Wars coming up this week. if you want to call it that, it's depending on
that's what the men are all calling it. So
but the Tuesday Night War, I mean, there were the Tuesday Night Wars for a little bit. I covered the beginning of it, and then thankfully they went to separate nights, but for one night only, at least for right now, because I'm sure some more sports things are happening, so it may happen again. So
baseball playoffs,
you
right?
look at both of these cards, and WWE is definitely stacking NXT, like they're bringing in John Cena's going to be on that show.
Cody.
Paul Heyman. They're hinting at the Undertaker very hard. I heard last night they played a NXT vignette and they ended it with the gong. So
I saw that this morning in something before I came on.
Yeah, they're like
I
really playing it up. And then AEW has like a pay-per-view quality show with the matches they've announced. The one thing that I wish they would do, which, you know, I wish this every week, I was like, NXT is going to have multiple women's matches, so you should maybe add another women's match. But
they can only have one.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
Only one.
But yeah, so you know, are you? Well, you don't really watch WWE, so I guess you're not. That's my question was going to be: are you going to watch both shows? But I guess no.
To be honest,
the three of us will be watching AEW. It looks
like respectfully, and that's how I real. And that's also the thing too of just like people always say like Tuesday Night Wars or something like that.
Right.
I think most people know like which they favor. You know, before the cards were stacked, most people had their minds made up of like what they were going to watch, and like I think we should just be more honest about that. I would be real, like y'all could have had Stone Cold, The Rock, and stuff, and I'm probably still not turned on it.
Yeah. My joke, but I was joking the other day that what they're gonna now that DIY got back together on Monday. I was like, DIY is gonna be on NXT facing a newly formed, reformed DX.
You know, like, and I say this because it's just like at the end of the day, like the stars aren't the problem, the structure is the problem for me. So like I realized like NXT is going to be like literally almost all promo segments this week. Like it's going to be like a whole bunch of promos because trust me, these people are not wrestling. Like Cody, Undertaker, John Cena, they're not wrestling. It's a whole bunch of promo segments and like literally just like appearances. And like that's also why I typically don't watch WWE just because it's not a wrestling focused product. AEW is a wrestling focused product, and like those matches, I'm sorry, like Swerve versus Bryan Danielson, I will be there with bells on.
Yeah.
Jay White versus Hangman.
Yes.
I know. Oh my god.
I'm not like, hello.
They're finally letting Hangman wrestle again, dude. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Like Hangman.
Finally.
What a man.
I love that guy. And then I love
and then so much shit for his run.
Go ahead.
He took so much shit for his run as champion, but
I love him as champion. I don't care what.
We could make an argument that there's like someone else who could be taking shit right now as champion.
Oh yeah, MJF needs to come up off that belt.
You heard it here, folks.
And I mean, like, it's just it's time.
Inarguable.
I'm really upset.
Yeah, like I do. I like MJF. I know what they're doing. I want Switchblade to be the one to take it off of him.
It's not going to be.
I don't think it's going to be hit. I think Switchblade will be champion at some point. I think they've already have who it's going to be. I still think. Look, I think we've talked about this many times on the show. I think MJF signed his contract a long time ago. I don't think that Bidding War 2024 does not exist. However, in the wrestling canon, I think that they're gonna keep milking it, and they're gonna make him hold the title through January 1st so that he can't sign.
See, I don't think that, and the reason why I don't think that now, I used to, but the reason why is because I don't think that doesn't work as a face if he's supposed to be a baby face. And also, I will say, like, AEW always fights perception issues. That's been like the biggest issue that they fought. Perception, not anything that's actually happened, but perception. And MJF being the world champion and the quote unquote top guy while consistently crapping all over the product and saying how much he hates it and he can't wait to leave, that actually started seeping into public perception. And that's why we've seen in these last couple months, he's been trying to walk a lot of things back and be like, well, no, our roster. So because people, especially like the outside of this AEW bubble, people point to that and they're like, well, your world champion doesn't even like it there. They see this doesn't even see this as the major leagues. And honestly, I don't think that AEW can afford for him to go back to that bidding war of from a perception issue, from a
sure. That's a really good point.
They can't afford it, especially after all the stuff that's happened. It's been too much backstage drama. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I don't think the company is not helped by him constantly saying like how much he hates it. Now, does that mean Switchblade wins? I mean, I hope. And honestly, like, hey, I was in the building at Full Gear when he won last year. A year is fine. I think a year is fine. And it's already bad enough he's breaking Kenny's record. Like, I'm really mad about that.
I feel you.
November 1st, he'll break it. And then what? Full Gear is what? November 20th?
The 18th.
November 18th. So I feel like he got the all-in main event. Like, enough. Adam Cole is injured. Like, you know, the better than you, baby stuff is enough.
We can tell. Well, you know, that will lead us into our ROH conversation.
Yeah.
Because I wanted, like, this is something Mel and I've been wanting to get to, but we had Wrestle Dream last week, and then I knew you were coming on. You watch ROH, so I was like, this will be the perfect time.
It'll be better because you both have been watching regularly.
Yeah, and so I watch ROH.
You can help me with this
mostly,
one.
I mean, I do watch ROH every week because I do cover it. I would still probably watch it anyway because I like a lot of the talent there. I like what they're doing. And because Athena is there and Athena is having, and Lyric and I have argued this, and I know Nikki, my sister who watches Brad, who's not here today, he's generally in the comments, you know, we've all been banging the drum about Athena to anybody who will listen, and that she is the best women's champion in wrestling. I don't care what anybody says. Just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean it's not happening.
That's it.
But so we have this situation in ROH that has been kind of the situation from, you know, since Tony has bought them, that the people who are holding the champions are AEW stars. So right now we have Better Than You, Baby, who have they took him off of Aussie Open, who had the title for like a whole 3 weeks when they lost him. Then you've got Eddie Kingston with the ROH title, which I don't have an issue with. And then you've got let's see,
Shibata with the Pure Belt.
Yeah, we've got Shibata with a Pure Belt, who actually does wrestle on ROH. Now we have the trio titles on the Hung Bucks. And so, and then of course there's Athena, who is almost completely relegated to ROH, which I do want to see her on AEW television. However, ROH, if you're going to build a division around somebody, that is who you build it around. Like, you cannot, there's nobody better to build that around. But so my issue is so now you have all these AEW talents who have these titles, and so the titles are typically defended against other AEW wrestlers. They're defended on AEW programming versus ROH programming, because that was a lot of the issue with Claudio. Claudio was rarely on ROH program. Samoa Joe hasn't really been on ROH program. You have him cutting a vignette last week about how he's coming for MJF. My guy, you have the TV title. When are you going to defend that? So, you know, it's just really frustrating. And so I asked Tony on the media call. I said, you know, and it was right after we saw the Elite One. I was like, are we going to see these people in ROH on ROH programming on a regular basis? And I also asked him, I was like, you said in the beginning, a while back, that they were going to be two separate products, that you were going to have two separate rosters. We're not seeing that. Is that going to change now? And he didn't answer that question. He asked, so let me see. I bookmarked what he said because I wanted to go back to it. And it was very typical. I mean, this was pretty much the answer I expected. And so he says, so he says, Tony says ROH has a strong lineup of champions. It's great for ROH. He really enjoys the ROH shows, and it's great. We will see more top stars in ROH. Athena is doing some of the best work in wrestling. ROH has fun shows. Claudio is one of the best wrestlers in the world, and they're very fortunate to have him wrestle in ROH and AEW. Tony does not take him for granted. He put over Gates of Agony and how they had never teamed together before he put them together. Then he talked about how Tully was with them, and then Tully no-showed Supercard of Honor, and that was the end of him managing him. He said he wishes them well, and now they have Prince Nana. And so he's just putting over all the champions and then not really answering my question. So I wanted to get your thoughts on so many AEW talent having ROH titles.
Yeah, I think it's a very tricky situation because I feel like it's bigger than we all see on the surface. I really do think it's a Warner Brothers Discovery thing. I think he put the belts on the top AEW talent to make the ROH product more attractive to them because he wants them to pick it up. Like, I think he really wants Warner Brothers Discovery. And obviously they've refused up until this point. But I think he feels that if you put it on the top talent, that is going to make the ROH product. And especially right now while they're negotiating this Max deal, you know, like I think obviously you would love for ROH to probably be on Max or something, or, you know, for something like that. So I think that that's what's happening. Now, I say all that, I think that's what's happening on the business side. But on this week-to-week product side, obviously for the people who do watch this current iteration of ROH, it's kind of like, it's really inconsistent outside of the women's division. Because I will say, and that's why I really kind of like stepped back on saying that, Athena needs to be in AEW or AEW TV more regularly. I do agree with that to a certain extent. And I do think that she would be a great asset, but I don't think that AEW TV needs her as much as ROH does. She is the only person who is consistently on ROH TV every week. And it also shows because she has the most intriguing storylines. Everything revolves around her. The show revolves around her. And to be quite honest, I would much rather her be doing that than fighting to be on TV once a month. One women's match on the card. She's so good. And I truly believe that Tony knows what he has with her. And no, she is the person who has a back strong enough to carry an entire brand by herself. And she's proven that she can do that. She is the star of Ring of Honor. And I'm gonna be honest, like, I'm not saying that going into AEW will devalue her, but she would definitely have to be competing with a lot of other stars for that type of time. And I honestly, like, truly, like, I think that this reign is perfect. I think that it's everything that I would want from somebody of her caliber. The Ring of Honor women's division is awesome. There are so many different faces that we get this, so many women being built. Like, they did a great job of building Layla Hirsch.
Yes. You know? Yeah. Her match with Layla last week was phenomenal.
Great. I was actually in the building for that. Like, that
right. I saw that you were.
And they've been building new challengers. The stuff she's doing with Billy Starks is amazing. Trish Mora coming up through the infantry right now. Like, there's so many different.
And now we have Lady Frost, and it came out that she signed with AEW, which she's been killing it down in ROH. And I figured she'd signed something because she's in ROH regularly, and she's and that's like, you know, because somebody made the argument, which I get where they're coming from, about how, like, we see Nick Wayne automatically getting in with Darby Allin and Sting, and he's on TV every week, and you know, Billy is just down in ROH, but she's under the best women's wrestler or best women's champion in the world, learning directly from her. Like,
absolutely.
Like, Billy can't, she's 18 and is already, like, she's a prodigy. She is very good. But to be under with Athena week in and week out, like, that's incredible. Like, you couldn't put her with somebody on. I don't even think you could put her, unless you're going to put her with, like, maybe Toni Storm. Like, you can't get any better than Athena. And, like, that's incredible for her. And so then they're even bringing up, like, they had the little story with the Renegades, who are still, like, trying to find themselves, but they're getting to work opposite of Athena. Like, that's huge. And then you see, like you said, like, you know, there's the Trish is coming up with the infantry, and she's doing all this amazing stuff. And so I agree. And so Mel has had a question about, you know, the ROH titles being on this. And do you feel like these titles being on AEW champions devalues ROH, or do you think, and then, you know, people are also, ROH is losing subscribers, you know, Honor Club is, because they're like, well, why would I pay $9.99 a month when I can just watch Eddie Kingston, you know, defend his title on Collision every week?
I don't think that it devalues it if these talents are actually competing on Honor Club. If they were on Honor Club regularly and doing the AEW stuff, I don't think that the titles are devalued. But you have ROH champions that are never on Honor Club. Like,
Right.
literally have not touched Honor Club.
Yeah, MJF
That's
has
like
never
my
been on
point.
Honor.
Is like if
Yeah.
I'm paying $9.99 a month in this economy, I mean, I hate to, in this economy, but
Well, no,
I
it's
mean
true.
that's a reality.
Well, you have 12 other things that you're subscribed to.
Well, right, and that's true too. I mean, I had to drop my Wrestle Universe subscription because I can't have too many subscriptions anymore. It's
I have like 8, and that's also the thing too. Like, or especially now, like I am gonna have to start cutting back on some of my subscriptions because I am subscribed to a lot of stuff. What I have New Japan World, I have
probably
Wrestling
Wrestle
Yeah, for me,
Universe.
World's non-negotiable, and I want to keep Honor Club, but people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and then people. Well, now you've got the people who stream like Paramount or they're going to sign up for Bleacher Report through Max now.
I was
or,
just going to say,
all
because
of
Max
these things.
did get Bleacher Report on there, and I've already subscribed to Max. So do I get that or do I not get that? And I know that the talk here is that there's going to be a sports package, which, I mean, that's kind of the same old. That's taking something old and making it new again. I mean, that goes back to when I was like, 1989 when my dad had to buy the sports package to see the sports out of Boston because we're in Southern Maine, because otherwise you don't get the Bruins games and stuff. Like, that's been around for a million years, but you've already got this product, you're trying to build it. It's Tony's company. This is like with his own money. You would think that I think
he doesn't want to piss off Warner Brothers Discovery, and that's also why he hasn't shopped out. He hasn't even shopped out to other companies.
Yeah,
ROH, because he does want to like maintain that relationship. I think heading especially into like these TV rights negotiations, and so like I think this is his way of trying to make sure that Ring of Honor is a part of that package. But right now, like I will say, like in doing that, maybe it's working for them. I really hope that it is.
Me too.
But right now, for the current subscribers, I do think it hurts. And also, like the pay-per-view schedule of Ring of Honor has been like so condensed now. It's like 3 a year. So like there's these big spaces in between. Mm-hmm. We don't even have Final Battle until December.
Right.
And so, hey, like I will say, I do think the Final Battle is going to be the real test of if this is going to work. Because, like, hey, Final Battle, hey, if you do have the Hung Bucks and MJF and all these people on one pay-per-view, I get it. Because I think, like, that is a great sell to Warner Brothers Discovery. And especially if you can say Final Battle did same type of buys that this AEW pay-per-view did. I think, long term, we're all going to be happy if WBD does pick this up and we can finally condense all of the streaming services.
Right.
So they can just pay for Max and people can get rid of their VPNs, hypothetically.
Yeah. We can stop losing people to
It's just and then there was the route because on the media call Tony's like, well, I never said we were going to go to 12 pay-per-views a year, and obviously there's the rumor that there's going to be
for a while.
There's a rumor that they're going to have a pay-per-view in December, and that there was a rumor that it's going to be on December 29th. I don't know if that was something that was thrown out there for what that was. So I was like, well, then what happens with Final? Like, do you keep Final Battle separately, like on, because it's typically like December 10th ish, like that time, because you got your holiday parties that you have to compete with, and you've got people are spending money, they're shopping for holiday stuff, and like they may not have the extra money to spend on. So then do you do 2 pay-per-views in December? Do you have the ROH pay-per-view and the AEW pay-per-view, or do you just hope everybody subscribes to Final Battle because MJF is finally going to wrestle in ROH and the Hung Bucks are going to and the Hung Bucks, I guess, would suppose in theory should be on that card. So yeah, it's really interesting, and I think you're right about a lot of it is business side of stuff, which is why I think the title was put on when Chris Jericho got the ROH title. I think it's because they were shopping it for TV.
100%.
And then they TV deal, so they're like, okay, we'll put it on Claudio because Claudio's never had the ROH championship, which he wasn't a bad champion. It was just like
he wasn't wrestling regularly enough on Ring of Honor.
No, and then and that's what we were like. One of the tapings, because that's when they were still doing taping in Orlando. He was wrestling in Japan, so he missed 4 weeks worth of ROH shows, and we didn't see him. And then he finally comes back, and it just felt like, oh, I'm obligated to be on ROH because I'm their champion. And then they had him cut a promo asking if he cares about ROH, and he was like, well, I do care about ROH, but the title doesn't mean anything to me personally, because then if it means something to me, then I get hurt. Basically, he was just trying to make it not having a personal attachment to it, but it just very much felt like I'm only here because they make me be here. How it came across. And so I was like, finally. And so I'm very happy that Eddie Kingston has this title, and I think he will be in ROH more. But then you see last night he defends it on Collision against Commander, who I don't have an issue with it being Commander, because Commander is somebody who's been in ROH and has competed several times down there. But then it's the same repetitive. It's the thing of, there's a ROH champion not competing in ROH. His first title defense, he hasn't defended it in ROH yet. He's defended it on AEW television. And so that's really frustrating.
I think also it's just and part of me is is he going to just do away with Honor Club? Because I do wonder, I think that with every single segment where you on AEW TV, where they have these ROH champions, you should have it on the bottom of the screen, subscribe to Honor Club.
Yeah.
That should be a
really good point.
Right. And you've got the library, because they pushed
really
it.
Good. That's such a simple one that they're just leaving money on the table.
Yeah, they don't push it. And the only time that they kind of did was when they were doing Samoa Joe versus CM Punk, because they were like, oh, well, we put the trilogy up. So if you want to go watch, which I did, that's what I went, because I didn't I didn't have access to ROH then. And so I went back and watched the trilogy ahead of that match. And so for me, that would have been if I didn't already subscribe, that would probably have been a selling point, at least for that month. And so they kind of pushed it then. They're like, oh, well, these 3 matches are on Honor Club. Go, go subscribe to it. But yeah, they don't say, at least when Dark and Elevation were there, the thing was always popping up.
Absolutely. And I think one thing, people can say whatever they want about Impact Wrestling, but one thing they realize is that their biggest selling point and their biggest asset is their library.
Yep.
So anytime anything is happening in professional wrestling, they're going to post that clip in 2.5 seconds.
Yeah.
They're going to push that library, and that
nobody works harder than the Impact social media.
Nobody. And I feel like that is a real gap that could easily be filled with ROH. Because there are accounts that do it. That ROH history account does it all the time.
Yeah.
Imagine if you just partnered with this person and just be like, hey, this is going on. Pull this clip. Because fans are doing so much of this work themselves for free.
Yes.
So imagine if you just redirected some of that energy. Because like I said, even going back to our earlier conversation, ROH is responsible for between ROH and TNA, that's a lot of wrestling history post 2000.
Yep.
A lot. Most of today's best wrestlers, you have some connection to ROH, whether it was through them actually being on the roster or them partnering with a CZW or a New Japan or a Noah, or they've literally had everybody at least made a stop, in ROH at some point. And so even if you don't want to push the current product right now, that library is gold.
Yeah.
That library is made of gold.
It is, and they're good about obviously in AEW other promotions exist, so they don't even hide the fact that so then you can say, hey, Claudio Castagnoli was here and wrestled this person, and then or you can be like, there's there's people in WWE who clearly go watch. If you want to see Kevin Steen wrestle, then go to here's the ROH library. If you want to see Tyler Black, here's the ROH library.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they could do so much more with it than they are currently doing. And that is, that they make ROH not feel important. And so then the fans who are not, especially if they weren't previously ROH fans, then it's not important to them either. I watch ROH because I loved ROH. There was towards the end, I got where I was watching pay-per-views, or I was or I was at least keeping up like through like the ROH account. Like, so I had an idea of what was happening, but like it wasn't something I was, because towards the end it got really rough. So I just was not watching it, on a regular basis, but I had an idea of what was going on. And then, and so I was really happy when Tony bought it, because I was like, okay, somebody who actually gives a damn about ROH has this. And I still think, and it's not that I don't think he gives a damn. I think he's just stretching, because now his focus, because at the beginning it was on ROH, but then Collision came, and so he had to pivot. And so Collision is his focus. And so ROH keeps falling by the wayside and falling by the wayside. And then like you don't have a Dark and an Elevation anymore. So then you do have so either these people don't have jobs. So like you see people like Sunny Kiss is no longer with the company because they didn't put Sunny Kiss anywhere. They're like, oh, YouTube's gone, so we can't use Sunny Kiss anymore, which obviously is not the case. But it's kind of like that's kind of how they treated it, was like, oh, well, ROH doesn't exist. I mean, these YouTube shows don't exist anymore, so we can't do anything with them. And I know you can't sign everybody, and you can't keep everybody, and I understand that. But like ROH is kind of this weird place where you get, which I guess is one of the things I like about it. I do like seeing some of the younger wrestlers, like I like seeing Griff Garrison down there, and I like seeing like Layla Hirsch and the Renegades and the people who are like trying to make it or trying to get their stuff in. And then, but I like seeing like I do like seeing the ROH talent. They're like, Dalton Castle is somebody who I feel like should be on TV every single week. Like, that man is a national treasure. But then if you're not going to put him, then put him in ROH. And so and they're kind of doing with him like they were doing with Athena. If Dalton Castle's not wrestling, there's typically some sort of a backstage segment with him. There's something going on with him where they're trying to use him because he's so beloved. And then that's where you have like Shane Taylor, obviously, is I think somebody who is synonymous with the most recent ROH product, is because Shane Taylor is one of the greatest TV champions they've ever had, and Shane Taylor's just amazing. And so, and I like that they've partnered him with Lee Moriarty and things like that. So like I like these type of things that are going on. But it also just feels disjointed. Like I don't know. So, and some weeks are hit or miss. Some weeks have really, really good stuff on it. And then some weeks are it does kind of feel like a Dark or an Elevation. And so it's frustrating when your champions aren't there. And then like they could be doing, like you could see if they had the focus, that it could be so much more, but Tony is stretched so thin between all of these shows that ROH is the one that suffers out of everything, I feel like.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
Yeah. So it's just frustrating. But it's frustrating because they could be doing so much with it. And I guess the last thing we'll talk about, because the show is actually about to start in 3 minutes.
It is.
Yeah, she's like, Lyric's like, I gotta go watch this.
I'm really excited about this show, by the way.
So the PW Revolver Grand Prix is today. And so PW Revolver, you've heard me, if you've been watching the last few weeks, you've heard me talking about how.
Do you want me to show some pictures here?
You can. Revolver, right. So I'm a big fan of the Revolver product and some of the stuff they put out. And so they are doing an all women's tournament today. It's their first one. They're bringing in Renee to be involved. She's a special ambassador. She's part of the broadcast team.
Love Renee.
Yeah,
we were marking out about Renee yesterday.
John Moxley, if you're not familiar with Revolver, John Moxley's already involved in Revolver. He wrestles down there sometimes he just makes appearances. It's unclear whether he's today is a double show. So the women's show starts at 3:00 Eastern, so in 2 minutes. And then at 8:00 is the main show. Which will feature both men and women. And John Moxley was scheduled to wrestle on the second show, but then because of the concussion, it was kind of unclear. But now he's supposed to wrestle on Wednesday against Rey Fenix. So I don't know if they're going to be like, we don't want to risk anything. So maybe they're not letting him wrestle. But so with the Revolver stuff, so that's our amazing broadcast team. Is so Veda Scott, who regularly is on commentary for Revolver, and then Gia Miller, who, if you watch Impact, you know that she does a lot of the backstage interviews and things like that. But in Revolver, she is the manager of ABC, which is Ace Austin and Chris Bay. So that is our wonderful announced team. And then first, before I go any further, Lyrica, do you watch Revolver? Are you familiar with the product?
Okay. I watch Revolver whenever I can. I love them. I think that they're really great. They're probably one of the indies that I watch the most. Whenever I can. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I just wanted to ask. So yeah. So with that, I guess if you want to just we're gonna throw these up at random, but these are the matches that are announced. Wait, I think are you muted, Mel?
Yes, I basically
Okay.
put them in order of how you sent them to me.
Okay.
So.
That works. So this match is the one I'm looking forward to the most.
I
Yeah.
put this one
hot.
first because I was like, I want to watch this match.
Yeah.
I
So the
love
first
this
round, if
too.
you're listening on audio, is Emi Sakura versus Trish Adora, who are two of my favorite wrestlers.
Great
and so
wrestlers.
I was already really happy to see that they were both in this tournament, but then they were like, here's a first round match. And I was like, oh, you're going to do me dirty and make, because one of these women is not going to be able to advance.
I am so excited for this. I can't. Oh,
Yes.
I'm not type of party.
Yes, definitely.
All right. What's the next one we've got?
Oh, this is a non-tournament match.
Yeah.
So there are two non-tournament matches, which will probably be between rounds 1 and 2 to give the
Should've
women
looked at the order of the
time.
card.
So one of the first one that popped up is Jamie Senegal versus Zoe Sky. Zoe, I think I've only seen wrestle like once or twice. I'm not super familiar with her, but Jamie used to wrestle at my local promotion. They had something called Pure, which is where a lot of the up and comers would wrestle in this tiny little room that they used to wrestle in. And Jamie was somebody that used to wrestle frequently, and I haven't seen her in a while. So I was really excited to see her getting a match on Revolver. Are you familiar with either one, Lyric?
I've never seen these two wrestle, but
yes, and that's the one thing about watching shows like this is always getting exposed to like new people.
Mm-hmm.
That's always fun.
I like it. All right, what's the next one here? I'm gonna keep us this way because it looks cool.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, so Billy Starks versus Rachel Armstrong. I think I've only seen Rachel maybe one other time, but I've heard a lot of good stuff about her. And it's funny because John Moxley did an interview with Sports Illustrated to kind of like, he was talking about a variety of things, but he pushed this show, which was really cool. Like his exact quote was, "I'm fucking stoked for this show."
I love him. He's the best.
Which is great. And he said this is going to be the best, most competitive, spirited match you're going to see anywhere all year. And he's talking about how like all these women were picked for very specific reasons because of their styles. And he basically was like, if you don't know who Emi Sakura is, you need to educate yourself.
Yeah,
and then
true.
Then he was talking about Rachel, and he said that he calls her Miss 450 because she does a sick ass 450. And he said she's at the very beginning of her career, and she's competing with some young veterans ascending their prime, like Allison Kay and Marina. And he was like, so like he's it sounds like John Moxley is all in on this match because he.
Wow, I mean that's a pretty great endorsement if you ask me.
Right? Yes.
All right, what's next?
And then this one will be just brutal. Yeah. Like they're just gonna kick the shit out of each other. Probably this is gonna be like this is gonna be like a Mike Bailey match with so many kicks with Marina Shafir versus Janai Kai. This is, oh man, I can't wait to see
this like one. Feels like it should be on a Bloodsport show or something almost.
Yes,
I think
I'd be happy to watch.
That'll be a great match for Bloodsport.
It would be great. And then Marina, they have really done a lot in Revolver as far as how they presented her. Like they posted this video of her, like she's been training with John Moxley. So she's kind of like Blackpool Combat Club adjacent, even though Danielson has claimed in the past that he doesn't want women in BCC. Maybe he's changed his mind, or maybe Marina will beat him up until he gets to.
Maybe once he retires, that rule will go away.
Mox says he's the decision maker in the group.
Oh, there you go.
Well, then if that's the case, then I wouldn't, unless Marina wants to do, which maybe she supports her husband's neck health and maybe wants to go help out Roddy. But if she doesn't want to, but if she needs a break from the neck health, she might align herself with Blackpool Combat Club. But like they
do the bridges over there. So
they do.
They're neck strong.
They do. And I have to have a strong neck for that. But yeah, I can't wait for that. But I really enjoy the way the way Revolver has been presenting Marina is how AEW should be presenting her.
Yeah.
And then, oh yeah, this one should be really great too. So this is Vert Vixen versus Allison Kay.
313 Allison Kay.
Yes.
Sorry, I love my AK. So
yeah, she's great. It's been good to see her in ROH lately. I hope she keeps coming back. But Vert Vixen she was just on was it Collision? No.
Collision, yeah, she was on Collision.
It was on Collision, but she'd been on the YouTube shows a lot, especially during the pandemic. I timed a lot of her matches. But she's also the Defy Women's Champion. And she has progressed so much in the last couple of years. Like, do you have anything you want to add about this match, Lyric?
Yeah, I think that Vert Vixen has just come a really long way. I've watched her stuff in Defy, but I've seen a few of her matches that she did actually in TJPW. She went on her tours of Japan. Like, I think she's come a really long way. She's impressed every time that I've seen her. And I think Allison Kay is just one hell of a vet. And I love actually having her on Ring of Honor. I think like she just brings so much. She's a great promo. And I think she's done really great work too, also in Women's Wrestling Army. Yes. As well. So yeah, I'm really excited to see this match. Yeah.
Yep. Good stuff. All right, and then I think the next one. So I think that's the end of the tournament matches. And then, this match is going to be fantastic. So there's a tag team match that is Killer Kelly and Jordan Grace versus Killer Death Machines with Jessica and Nieva. And they used to team together in Impact. And so I think this is their first time teaming in a while, I think is what they said. And so this match, and then later on the the Revolver Redemption show, it's Killer Death Machines and Jordan Grace are facing the Rascals.
Oh, wow.
Ooh,
yeah, and I was like, those women might murder the Rascals.
I have speaking of murder, I have a split screen up right now, bro. Janai and Marina are kicking the shit out of each other.
Oh yeah, we're gonna let y'all go in a second. So if you want to go watch it, I don't think I'm not sure that I'm gonna get to this live, but
she wants to too. So
I'm so
that was my last slide anyway. So
so I don't know, like if this is Revolver does not have a women's title, so like I don't know if this is just going to be for bragging rights or if they're going to surprise us and be like,
I wouldn't be surprised if they surprise it. I think they should announce one tonight.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering if the winner of this either gets the title or if they're like the number one, like the first person who gets to compete for the title. Yeah. I'm kind of wondering where that's going because they do feature women on their show. Like they do have women's matches, they have intergender matches. Which is always cool to see. So Revolver's doing a lot of cool stuff. And now Sami Callihan is who is behind Revolver. He's a free agent. There's been a lot, and him and John Moxley used to be a tag team together. So there's been a lot of talk about him potentially coming into AEW as both a wrestler and a coach. There's been a lot of speculation on what he's up to. And then there's somebody I think it was when Adam Copeland came out and the thing popped up and said feature presentation, I believe it, or our feature presentation, that Sami Callihan had that or something similar when he was in Impact. And so people are wondering if there's some kind of tie-in to Sami Callihan there. Or so it could be really interesting, but regardless, I hope he just keeps doing what he's doing in Revolver because they are killing it and they're such a fun promotion.
Yeah, they've been doing really great stuff. I think like they're really a high spot in the indies right now. Like I think they're a really high spot, and especially now with Fight Plus, we can all watch it. We can all watch it. So that's been really cool.
Yes. All right, so I think we covered everything and lots of things. So Lyric, where can the people find you? Plug any shows or anything that you want to plug?
You can find me at Lyric Wrestling on Twitter and Instagram. And you can also find me on Thursdays on the Maps and Graps podcast, which is my podcast covering wrestling all around the world. And the info to that is on my YouTube, just Lyric Swinton, my first and last name. And obviously I'll be tweeting about it. So you can see the link in my bio has all of like my articles, my Wrestle Dream reel of all of the questions and answers.
Yes, I saw that you posted that.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to retweet stuff. So I mean, we try to I like retweeting both your and Sam's stuff because I learn a lot from. You guys are my suppliers of information and knowledge for journalism. You guys do great on your SEO. I love it when I look up a women's thing and that's one of the two of you pop up at the top.
I consider myself a journalist, but hey, like I'll take
Yeah,
it.
we're content creators, I think is the
Content
best way to,
creators.
that's what I usually say if someone asks me, because there's no way in the world I qualify. I mean, I also went to school for journalism. I was a copy editor. I did the thing. I was the editor of my high school paper for a couple of years.
Me
One of those
too.
things. But it's like, I don't consider this that necessarily, but I do try and hold myself, like what you guys were talking about. I think it's great that you guys are out there asking thoughtful questions that are not like, can I touch you? Which is so inappropriate. I can't. As someone who goes to Ren Fair and has had their self and their husband be inappropriately touched, I'm anti asking people that question. I think personal space. Come on.
Right.
But thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
Lyric.
absolutely.
I'm
Thanks
so
for
glad
coming.
we were able to get you on the show.
I'm
Yes.
so happy that I was able to do this. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Yeah, definitely. We'll definitely have to have you back, and you and I will have to link. If we don't get to see each other before then, I definitely will have to link up at the SJ show because
Of
I
course, yay!
can't wait for that. Yes. So
Pictures are it didn't happen.
yeah, oh yeah, there will definitely be pictures, of course. We're content creators.
All right, you guys have a great week.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Lyric.
Bye.